Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to today's deck profile. So I have a special guest today. He got first place at the last extravaganza, right? So that's a really big accomplishment. It was 8 rounds in total, and he went I think 7-0-1, which is 7 wins, 0 losses, and 1 tie, to ultimately make it to first place. So just as a like you would play in a regional, this was a just completely just Swiss. So we're gonna have him go into his deck profile. But before we do, I just want you guys to don't forget to check me out at twitch.tv/pack_official_tcg, where you can find more content like this live. But anyways, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Bryce Clow, otherwise known as Homebrew Yugioh from YouTube.
Okay.
I mostly just do a bunch of deck profiles over there of my crappy decks that occasionally get wins.
Okay. Awesome. Do you want to do any shots before we jump right into the profile?
Yes. So first off, I want to shout out to my basically everyone in Gresham Yu-Gi-Oh Facebook group. All those people are awesome guys. I'm doing a ton of testing with. I see most of them at my locals. So some names in particular I want to shout out. My boy Ian. He Cyframe God. He basically was my test partner for like most of the last 2 weeks. Same thing with my buddy Brian. He got me a handful of cards for this deck that I've been needing. Huge shout out to Orlando. He got me my Magician Souls, and Ramon for helping me get those souls. And then yeah, basically just shout out to everybody that's also in my YouTube channel stuff, because like half of these decks I put together are put together with the advice and comments from other deck profiles. So ton of fun
Awesome.
there.
Awesome. Well, congratulations again, and let's see what you played for this past extravaganza. So we'll
All
start off
right,
with the main deck.
so sure thing. Basically, I played normal summon Alistair the deck, but I splashed an Eldlich engine.
Sure.
Uh, it's really standard in that basically how I do how I build my decks. I check the old ones from past formats and see how they did. So two Golden Lord, like you don't really want to see this in your opening hand, with the one exception of when your opponent has Dragoon on the field, because otherwise there's no real main deck out to Dragoon that I have at the moment.
Mhm.
Because you're usually what you have to do is Lord pitch a card, blow up another card, and then blow up a card on your field to summon this back. And if they negate it, then it's still 3k, and and you can just beat over with something like a Perk Trio or a Macabre with something big. But if they don't negate it, then you swing over it with 35 anyway. So it's real. So this is kind of it's a big beater that is big. Smile.
Yep.
3 Alistair, like you got a normal summon it, dude. 3 Magician Souls and the 1 mana. My boy Brian got me the mana. Shout out to him. And the Magician Souls, like, so for the longest time, especially at the previous extravaganza, I was actually not playing Souls at all, because they're really expensive, right?
Yeah.
So I actually was playing something completely different. I was actually playing 3 copies of Neos Fusion
Oh,
and
okay.
Rainbow Neos in the extra deck. The reason being is that it doesn't have the same restriction that the Red Eyes Fusion does, where you cannot spell summon for the turn. It's for the rest of the turn. So if you do things like your invoke stuff and your Eldritch stuff, it's great, and then you can just slap it and make a free Neos, right?
Yeah.
But this is like on a whole nother level. Like it allows you to make Dragoon with any other monster in your hand, with even a hand trap or an Alistair. And if you open this plus Alistair and your opponent has like nothing, like that's insane. Like you get Dragoon,
Right.
Kava, back row,
So before
and
we
the
get
mana.
into the rest of the profile, I was gonna ask you, like, what made you decide to play, Eldlich and invoke cards? Like, why? I guess, like, I know you borrowed some cards and whatnot, but like if you were to hypothetically, like, have, like, let's say an infinite, like, any cards at your disposal, right? Like, would you still play the same deck, or did you choose to play this deck for like other reasons? Like, I guess, like, what was your motivation behind, like, choosing this deck for this event?
So, the reason I played Invoked in particular is because it's the archetype I've been playing basically forever. I've been playing it since Goki format, or actually managed to get my invite with my last round against Manav. So I've been playing this since then. It's really consistent. Everything is really dense, if that makes sense. It's
Mhm.
really self-contained, and it can function on its own without any other options. It leaves a lot of room for other awesome deck building stuff. Like you see a ton of things splash with Eldritch, right? You see Mech Knights, you see tons of hand traps, you see Eldritch cards. What was the other big one? Eldritch Sky Striker was a big one.
Yep.
But it gets you. It's basically no matter what you have. If you have this in hand, you basically have at least something your opponent has to respect, and it's really self-contained. So it was
Okay.
really consistent.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So you're going about mana, explaining that choice.
Yeah, mana is really just kind of the basic. It's like a half a garnet, only because if your opponent imperms your souls after you pitch cards, you can spell summon this from the grave for free and still make Verte,
Mm-hmm.
and then just make Dragoon. So
Yep.
otherwise, you just I don't know. A thing that someone in my comment section on my channel mentioned was that I could play Fleur de Lis because it's another hand trap that does something similar,
Yeah.
and is also a target for this. So if I decide to pick one up, that's definitely something I would do.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Right.
So for the hand traps, I played Triple Ash. Like, I mean, does this card even really need explaining? It's the most generic
Yeah.
hand trap in the game.
Exactly.
Uh,
Right. Stop Stratus Fusion, which is probably the biggest thing. In the
that's
format.
yeah, that's massive. Triple Droll. The matchups I was actually expecting a lot of was either mirror match like Invoke stuff or Dogmatica, and I really had to respect the ritual deck
Yeah.
because
Datron
if
deck.
I
Yep.
didn't, then I just get blown out by like Heralds and Vanity's Ruler and stuff like that. So I just had to play 3 of this. Like it seems the second most generic hand trap outside of Imperm. So yeah, and then the 2 Garnets because obviously shout out to my boy Brian for giving me the structure deck Joey
Is that the
Red
Joey
Eyes.
one? Yeah. Nice. 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 Yeah. No. 100%. So it seems you're playing also the Dragoon package. Wow. Nice.
Traps really standard. 3 Conquistador. People were actually asking me why I ran 3 Hakero.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I think this is low key the standard. Like every deck in the format right now somehow interacts with the graveyard. You know, dinosaurs. You can hit Miscellaneousaurus or whatever they're targeting off Oviraptor. You can hit in a mirror match. You hit Invocation or Alistair against like Dogmatica stuff with Shadalls. This came in so much clutch because if my opponent would try to flip Schism, this would actually act as another Conquistador because you would banish their Apcolon in the graveyard, and then the Schism would basically fizzle. So this
Right.
this has just a ton of random
Yeah.
one-sided matchups.
Only
It's
against.
just really,
Yeah, that would only apply against like the invoked variant of like using dogma cards to get Schism, because I think with actual
yeah,
Shadal decks they would have more than enough Shadal monsters to still make whatever they want to make. But yeah,
yeah, of
I agree
course.
with
Like
that.
they
I
would
agree with
still
that.
have more, but like the
Yeah,
ones I saw the most at the Extravaganza didn't run more than just
the
either
dogma package,
a
right?
beast in the main.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yep, yep, yep.
well,
No, I do agree. I think 3 Haquero is gonna be I think the standard now. I think people recognize that Haquero is very important because of the Dytron matchup. It's
that
like its
that's also
ability
a
to
good point.
like stop a Ben 10 from being able to activate or being able to like banish one of like any of the Dytron names, which is a huge resource, right? Is
Mhm.
definitely makes it a really powerful 3 of instead of a 2 of now. So I do
Yeah.
agree.
3 Sanguine, like merge
Of
teleport's a good
course.
card. Smile.
Yeah.
Triple Imperm. I went back and forth on this for like maybe a week. I decided to play it because it was a hand trap that hits most everything in the format, with the exception of Virtual World and kind of Dino. But it was another. It was also another hand trap that I can pitch off of
Souls.
the Magician Souls.
Yep.
So that was basically the tipping point.
Okay, is there any other reason why you decided to play Souls? I mean, sorry, decided to play Imperm? Because I think a lot of people are saying Imperm isn't really that good right now. So like if you think about your
Yeah, sure.
matchups, like how did Imperm actually perform for you in those 8 rounds? Just walk me through that.
So like the majority of my matchups were Dogmatica variants and Zoo variants.
Oh, okay.
So this really came in really clutch against Zeus, and the one time I played against Drytron in the finals was he didn't. I opened Droll both games, so this didn't come up to where Vanity's Ruler was relevant. I don't
Okay.
even know if he ran it because I
Yeah.
saw MCOL 40's list. And I didn't see it, so.
Yep. Okay.
Uh, but yeah, that was something that I was really worried about because I don't have, and the same reason why I don't have too many outs to the main deck Dragoon,
Yep.
other than the Lord,
Yeah.
because like it shuts down all my traps, and that's just really important.
Mhm.
For the spells, Red Ice Fusion, obviously. I only played one.
Yep.
It's okay in this one variant. This is actually okay to draw as a one of, just because your boards are usually just Makaba Pass or Makaba Dragoon Pass. So
Yeah.
drawing this and just making Dragoon over Mekaba is fine.
Yep. Gotcha. That makes sense.
Call by the Grave. I wanted to bump up to 42 cards, not only because I can get more cards in for souls, but I didn't want to have to worry about drawing into the 4 garnets.
Mhm.
So this was like the 42nd card.
Okay. Gotcha.
White and black. And if I'm going in the future, I might just cut black again. I think I resolved it from hand once all week.
Yeah.
It was not solid at all. I think I would probably, if I was to cut anything, it would probably be this for like an upstart or like, I don't know, designator if we get that in Blazing Vortex.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. Or even Pot of Disparity, to be honest. But yeah.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea either.
Yeah.
I just need to figure out if I would want to run that over Extravagance.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep. Oh, you play Extravagance. Oh, well, I'll see
No.
the rest of the cards. Okay. I was about to say.
I don't play Extravagance.
Okay, you don't. Okay, I was about to say that sounds insane because Extrav would conflict with Souls anyways. So, but yeah.
Yeah. 3 Curse Outlands.
Of course.
Standard.
Standard, yeah.
2 Invocation because every good Invoked player always draws it anyway, so you don't need the 3rd.
Sure.
Terraforming and Triple Meltdown to see the Alistair. Like,
yep.
It's
7 Alistair.
kind of just basic in the main deck. Extra deck. It's over
nice.
here.
So total 42 cards in the main deck.
Yes, sir.
Nice, nice. Yep.
So extra deck, 2 Makaba, standard.
Mm-hmm.
I put in Calga because I was thinking I was going to see more of the mirror match. I didn't, and I would probably cut this next for like the big rank 10 train that burns for 2K, which would have actually come up in my one matchup I got the tie against Prank Kids.
Why is Caliga good in the mirror match? Like why
because you can hit your opponent's Alistair.
You what? I'm sorry.
You can hit your opponent's Alistair, and it stops them from going like full nuts combo because they can only activate the one Alistair, and if they have like Magician Souls or any of the Dogmatica package, they're locked out of it.
Okay, so that was your logic. Okay, I was gonna say like my reasoning would be playing Caliga is actually that it's basically like a very strong floodgate against the Diatron decks, and Diatrons can't really out Caliga unless they have Nova, and even if they do have the Nova, they can't even punch into Caliga because you have Alistair to boost it to 2800 defense. It also says 1 monster effects, and most of the Diatron monsters summons in defense mode. So, like, it's really hard for them to out the Caliga because after they use a Diatron effect, they can't just make a Cerberus because their one effect would be to summon a Diatron name. So I thought that would be, like, the reasoning. Okay, interesting. But I still think, yeah, Caliga is one of, like, the better invoke cards, too. And it's also a dark monster, which I don't think you have a lot of trouble getting into, actually. So I like it.
Yeah, you're right. In the main deck, it's not super hard. It's just the problem in Drytrons is, like, unless they're running Skullmeister, there's not really another Dark in their deck. And if you're going second to make Caliga against that deck anyway, it's kind of...
Yeah, because I was also going to say, like, how do you actually make Caliga in your deck? Because you don't really have a lot of Darks, do you? Or... Souls. It was Souls. It's Souls.
Yep. You got Verte. Most of the Darks are in the extra deck.
Yep.
Purgatrio. I actually decided to cut... I was playing 2 of this originally.
Okay.
Because I was running Almirage and before I ran Artemis, and it just didn't want to come up as the second one was not as important. So when I cut Artemis, I cut this to 1.
Okay.
It was actually pretty sick. Round 3 or something like that, 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
My opponent didn't read Purgatrio, so I went to swing with it directly, and they're like, "Okay, I'll chum block with Scapegoat."
What? Okay, first off, why was he playing Scapegoat? That's the real question.
He was playing Trickstar.
Oh, Trickstars. Okay.
Yeah. So he was going to make Warlord or something, but he didn't read the card, and it's just like, all right, cool game. Smile.
Yeah, okay. That's interesting. How did he make it 6-0 without not knowing what Purgatrio did? That's crazy, but okay. Beats me, right? I guess we take those. Okay.
I decided to put in a Raijin as well.
Nice.
I wanted to see this, so for 2 reasons. One, my buddy Alex, who is running the Tri-Brigade stuff with, like, the barrier statue, I didn't know if that'd be relevant again, but I saw it twice in the past, like, 2 weeks. Once at the previous Extravaganza and another one at the Invitational.
Mm-hmm.
So I just decided to put this back in. Plus, I'm maining Droll, and most of everyone else is maining Droll.
Yeah. No,
so
I think Raijin's a very good call, actually, because if you get barrier statue locked, it's really annoying, and Raijin is a nice sort of out to it. Not really an out, like, but at least you have something to be able to attack over the barrier statue with, because obviously Alistair by itself can't really attack into it, but now that you have Raijin in your extra deck, you also have Lord ability to, like, pitch to send, like, you know... Actually, you cannot send the Wind Barrier statue if they have this Immortal Link, but you have, like having that as an out is, like, really nice, so I kind of like it.
There was one time, though, I managed to actually get double Alistair effect with the same Alistair, because I got my normal summoned Alistair, and I had the Invocation in hand when he had Droll in the graveyard anyway.
Oh.
So I made this using an Alistair I had in graveyard, and then used it to book my own Alistair, and then I was able to flip it next turn, because this was able to chum block, or not chum block, but it dealt with the one swing that would have dealt with the Alistair. So
Oh, nice. Yeah.
like this has weird interactions with a bunch of random cards in the format too. So
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome.
Hyogades, it's basically your third Makaba because it's a monster you can make on your turn and your opponent's, or on your turn, and it also interacts with your opponent's cards. It is also another Eldlich Dragoon, which is really sick.
Yeah, of course, being able to boost it, it's huge. I actually really like this card. I think this card was amazing to be added to the
Agreed.
arsenal of
And plus,
Invoked
in
Extravganza.
Dogmatica variants, where you see like Untis and Titanic Light all over the place, like if you see your opponent hit with like punishment, it's basically free.
Yeah, exactly.
Dragoon,
Yep.
because we're not paying the main deck cards without the extra deck one.
Yep.
Link monsters.
How before we if you can go back to Dragoon, like how good was this card? Like would you would you when you think back to how you won most of your games, how many of them would you contribute to having Dragoon in the extra deck for you?
Okay, so if we're talking just sheer, I have a negate that's a towers. Next to none of my matchups went that way.
Okay.
The reason that Dragoon became really clutch was burn damage in time, of course, and also was able to clear boards similar to Rainbow Neos, and then I allowed me to get in for some extra damage. So like if you summon this against say Dogmatica, it's basically a free 6k damage because you can burn the 2 cards and then swing for 3.
Yeah.
And it's also working as a kind of a pseudo cold wave for your back row because like everyone wants to Ash Blossom or Bell the Sanguine, right? So this was just nice to have on the board.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you would say a
This is
lot then,
definitely not
because I think like that card itself is like it's a towers like you said, and it has obviously the negate, but its ability to clear the board, and your opponent have no real like out in their back row means that it's a very powerful card against trap decks. So I think this card was from what I understand, I saw that a lot of players have been switching to like just Turbo Dragoon. Like I know like players who like top with like just playing 3 Red Eyes Fusion, 3 of the Red Eyes Insight in a 40 card deck with like Upstart.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
speaking of that deck exactly, I actually played that exact deck, the Dinkabooey Red Eyes Turbo variant
Yep.
in the Invitational last weekend.
Yeah.
I found that it was actually a lot less consistent because everyone and their mother always ashes Red Eyes Fusion.
Yeah,
Like,
if they have the
they're
Ash
not
Blossom, yeah, they have it. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's like the downside with playing that version, and then your version where you go into Anaconda. That version is a little nicer because not a lot of people are playing Imperm in the main deck or even in the side deck, right? So that allows you to resolve Anaconda and play through like an Ash Blossom. And if you think about all the hand traps in the format right now, right? Like Droll, Ash, like Meister, Bell, Crow, all the graveyard hand traps, you don't really none of those affect Anaconda, which is why like they would have so many dead cards in their hand against a Dragoon, and they need multiple cards out the Dragoon, which is why the card is so powerful, right? Like not only do you need multiple cards, you need very specific cards out this card, and that by itself with like Eldlich Recursion within your deck just makes it like you just OTK them if they can't like address it in time.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I really like this card. Yep.
Obviously, this card's insane, but I don't think it's nearly like impactful as it was. Like this just might be my 500 IQ. Like,
Okay.
big play. But I don't think this thing is nearly as good in the TCG as in OCG.
Yeah.
Because like, if you look at any of the combo decks right now, like Virtual World, Drytrons, right? Those are the 2 big ones. Neither of these decks are running this, and even if you go back to the previous format, like Dragon Link ran it sometimes, and Warriors didn't run it at all.
Well, I think it's not. I don't think you can compare it like because it's not being run in combo decks that it's not a good card. I think the card is good because it's actually being run in trap decks.
The slower deck.
Yeah, like
exactly.
it's that good against. It's like it's good. It's a good card in the slow decks, and it gives slower decks something that like lets them get more turns in, right? Like think about how many turns you need if someone summons Dragoon on you, like quite a lot. Unless you like you said, unless you open up your Lord, like you realistically have no way to like really out this, right? And your back row isn't really like dealt with that too. So like if hypothetically if you were to think back and you played more like 4 out of your 8 rounds were Dragoon decks, like it would actually be a lot more difficult, right? Just because like I said, this card is it's not something you would ever summon in a combo deck, right? Because if you're gonna make eight negates with like Herald anyways or summon a ruler, like that in itself is more consistent and better than playing inherent bricks in your deck. But with a trap deck, I think it's like almost like justifiable. So that's why. But no, 100%. I get what you're saying. Let's see the rest of this extra deck.
Sure. Link's Spider just to
Of
turn any of your
course.
traps into Verte.
Yep.
Link, Rebo, and Anima for the Magician Souls. There So there was a couple times where you didn't actually make Verte like turn one either. Like if you knew your opponent had punishment, right? Like you don't waste your Verte on that. You wait until later to do it.
Yeah.
And it also came up that people would just blow up the Verte immediately on summon. So when you have cards like this in like for later games, like this deck is specifically built to start off with something that's not exactly the most broken thing in the world, like Mecha Pass, right? That's not insane, but
Yeah.
you're meant to one for one your opponent and simplify the game state to where all of your one card starters, like Alistair or Sanguine and all that stuff, basically allow
Yeah.
you to snowball your opponent. So
Right.
these allowed me to do, especially Anima. This thing came in clutch. Like,
Yeah. Also, like, if I'm not mistaken, is Anaconda 2 effect monsters, or is that understanding incorrect?
yeah, that's why I ran the Spider.
Yeah, that's what I'll say. Like running Spider is also really relevant for that interaction. How much did Anima come up for you? Would you cut that card? Because I don't see, like, why would you summon Anima, like, ever, besides, like, punishing people for summoning in the zone under the extra monster zone.
Basically, everyone always hits the Alistair over the Magician Souls because they know it's like a long-term sustain or it's a long-term problem.
Yeah.
So if your opponent doesn't hit the Magician Souls, like, or if they specifically hit the Alistair, this is really good at just taking random or just taking like Kabas or Ecclesias or what's the other big thing?
Mm-hmm. I guess, like,
Oh
people don't
goodness.
expect it when they see you playing an Invoked Eldlich deck that they have to play around the zone, so they would get punished by just not summoning there. But I mean, I guess those are just like players not
Yeah.
cognizant of that card being in the format, especially because every Diatron deck has it in their extra deck. But okay, I like it. I like it.
Plus, one of the big pluses about Invoked is that the extra deck is not super tight, so you can just run random stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
Like this stuff like this just comes up on occasion, and it's just really
Yeah.
cool when it does.
Mm-hmm.
Artemis for the Alistair,
Of course.
Verte,
Yep.
the two Nightmares. Like these didn't come up as much as I thought they would, but I figured I might as well have them because I wanted to have some sort of like relevant back row removal,
Yeah.
and they're just generic.
Yeah.
And
Phoenix
then
is also fire, which is kind of nice.
yeah, I mean yeah, Purgatrio's a good card.
Yep.
And then Barricade Board Blocker. This one was actually like a second Verte for me because it was always a card that got you another resource at some point. And a lot of times it's the +1 depending on what you pitch off of it. And plus in my side deck I'm running another target for it that's really relevant. So it basically allowed me to put my opponent on the clock.
Okay. So that's 15 card extra deck. Did you ever feel like you should have maybe like ran like 2 Anacondas just in case the first one got disrupted? Let's say like it gets punishment on summon. And you can, like, the following turn try to like make another Anaconda and like keep the pressure going. Like, did you ever miss not having a second Anaconda in those game states? Because like people play stuff like Torrential, right, which would happen on the summon of Anaconda, right? So like Anaconda would never have to send a Red Eyes Fusion for cost, allowing you to effectively, if you were to make a second one, like it puts the pressure back on.
Yeah, it came up a couple times where like Torrential and Punishment were really
Yep.
big, but a lot of times I saw where people just straight up negating the effect.
Oh, okay.
Like Strike was a really popular one.
Yep.
What was Imperm I also saw a couple times.
Mhm.
So it does come up, but when I'm running the one fusion, like it just if I were to cut anything, I would probably cut down either Kalga or Raijin to put in the second Verte.
Okay.
I need to get a second Verte. So
Gotcha. Of course, nah. Just posing the questions for people watching the videos. So, because I want this not to just be like any old like deck profile, but rather to be like a conversation, so we can kind of understand like a little bit more in depth, like why you play X card, and to get people thinking, like when people watch the deck profile, to rather just not blindly copy decks, but also to like have some considerations to other cards and other ways to make the deck better. Obviously, you did very well with the deck and you got first place. But I just to like keep people engaged and also like thinking, right? About like as the meta evolves and as cards rotate in and out of the format, what they can also do if they're building this deck to innovate it and make it even better. So,
I absolutely agree.
okay, let's see that side deck, I guess.
Okay. So the side deck is definitely the thing I'm going to change the most going into the future, and I'll
Sure.
get to those cards in a moment.
Okay.
Triple Nibiru in the side.
Mhm.
in the previous format, I was actually maining this over Imperm, but I wanted to have the Imperm not only for the souls, but because I wanted to have something that dealt with Vanity's ruler, which obviously this doesn't do, right? But it does come in against Virtual World and Drytron on occasion. It just depends on whether or not how good the player is, because Drytrons can sometimes set up the level 6 Herald on occasion, or they have
Yeah.
the Herald fight. So at that point, though, it just comes down to a read whether or not they have it.
Yeah,
So,
of course, of course. Yeah. Yeah, I
uh,
explained to people too, like Nibiru is actually like better than people think into the Diatron matchup, because if you understand how Diatron decks like sequence their plays, what usually happens is that they go into a union carrier at some point in like their combo, which is usually the third summon because it takes 2 monsters to make carrier. They would equip Donate, and then after that, when they Meteonis it, they would always summon a Benten from the graveyard, and then trigger the Donate to send like the name they're missing, which is usually a Gamma. And after they Gamma the Benten, and summon 2 bodies on the field, that would be like over 5 summons. And then from there, you can Nibiru them on the spot, because effectively, if they don't have a third name in their hand or a fourth name, they won't be able to add back Meteonis from the graveyard and set up any real negates, especially if they're not playing the ruler variant. So I think Nibiru is
yeah.
actually not like the worst card into those matchups, and obviously it's amazing against Virtual World.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, against Virtual World, this was an easy side in. I didn't see a single
Yeah.
Virtual World all day,
Okay.
so this didn't even come in at
Yeah.
all today, even against the Invoked variants, because like there was cards I'd rather have over this in those matchups. So
Hmm.
I don't know. Depends on how I see the meta shaping up. Because I think if I remember what happened in the top 16 or top 8 or something like that, there was like one Virtual World in the entirety of top 16,
Yeah.
which was interesting to me because that was the matchup I was kind of fearing a lot because VFD is like insane against Alistair. So
Yeah, it stops like a lot of your decks, right? Like it stops your Alistair, it stops your Lord, it stops like your souls. You have a lot of stuff that activates, so you would have to like honestly rely on trap cards and like hopefully and hand traps to like be able to play into that matchup. So I definitely agree.
not only that, but their Synchro monster is low key insane. It's a
Oh yeah,
Macrocosmos.
yeah. Yeah, that card
Like
is definitely not balanced,
like
but
that
yeah.
card literally just says you're not playing Invoked. So
Yeah, 100%.
and that's another card that Imperm deals with.
Yep.
This is definitely the card I'm going to take out going into the future. I
Yeah.
wanted to have this for Dragoon, but I think in the future I might cut this for either Lava Golem or another like hand trap of some sort, maybe DD
Yep.
Crows or Psychic Readers,
Mhm.
because there was a ton of Eldlich, and I saw multiple Eldlich all day long. So I think
Yeah.
that might be something to go into the future doing.
Yep.
Uh, Triple Dark Ruler. I wanted this for. Sometimes when if you're playing against a bad Virtual World player, they won't shotgun the VFD. But if they do, then you have Imperm, I guess. But otherwise,
Yeah.
this is just really good against Dino. It's also
Yeah.
really good against Herald decks. Like this is basically a must-have. Like this Androl or like auto wins against the Herald if they don't have the appropriate hand trap. So
Right. Yeah,
Feather Duster.
Feather Duster is a good card. I was gonna talk actually about a little bit about the Dark Ruler. It's funny. I think Dark Ruler is a very powerful card, but it's actually like doesn't actually stop the virtual deck, because if they like don't shotgun and you go into main phase and the first thing you do is activate Dark Ruler, the sequence that they can do is chain the trap card, and then like just flip it up and don't inactivate it, and then chain VFD as like chain link 3, and that kind of plays around Dark Ruler even if you just start off with Dark Ruler, because it just says your opponent can respond to this card's activation, but they can respond with a trap card, then chain link 3 the VFD. So it just really depends on like how well the virtual world player understands like the mechanics of Dark Ruler and to play around it. But that's why like you never really side the Dark Ruler against like the virtual matchup, and even Imperm, because even if they shotgun VFD, when you try to Imperm, they'll chain the trap card, popping their VFD, which means VFD still resolves. But I do think like Dark Ruler is an amazing card into like the Diatron matchup, because like like you said, the only thing that they have to like fend against themselves now is just like Herald and Ava's in their hand, which is like sometimes like okay, but like yeah, it's definitely like decent. So
Yeah, if I was going into the future with like an infinite amount of money, I would definitely put droplets in here
yeah,
over
I was about to say
uh,
that, yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah, I was actually gonna suggest like maybe like a droplet in the main deck over Imperm because you can always send trap cards to like stop VFD, and then they can't respond with their trap card. So like or like Tuche against the virtual deck. So it's just, but of course like droplet is it's so expensive, and that's why I understand like the choice for Imperm, and also Imperm is definitely has some benefits where it can still function going second. Whereas drop in terms of like as a hand trap, where droplet you have to wait for your opponent to set up the board before you can droplet. So either or, I still think it's an okay choice. Yeah, I understand why you did what you did.
Yeah, something about there's also I would also played Forbidden Chalice in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Not only because it can deal with VFD if they don't have the trap,
Yep.
or like say the oh goodness, what's the name of the big Macrocosmos
Oh, Shen.
virtual monster?
Yeah,
Shen. Yep.
Yep.
But it also allowed you to play around Dweller a lot better than like Inform or Dark Ruler does,
Yeah.
because it's really flexible. It can if your opponent Dwellers you, you can chain the Forbidden Chalice, or if they you can even do it in damage step or on damage attack or damage step on random stuff. So it's
Yeah.
something that I also tested in the past. But obviously, like
Yep.
droplets would be better than all those like by a mile, because it
Of
also
course.
gives you resources with if you pitch your traps. So.
If you pitch the Eldlich cards, yeah, of course.
Mhm. Anyway, one Harpies.
Mm-hmm.
I opted not to play Cosmic or going into this because I wanted to actually play Triple Mystic Mine
Is it?
inside.
Okay, nice.
Okay, I'm not a bad person for playing Mystic Mine, but
I love how you start off with that. You're like, yo, I'm not a bad person, guys. I swear.
yeah,
Okay.
the reason I wanted to play this over anything else is
Yep.
because in a deck that's entirely reliant on normal summon Alistair for your main combos,
Yeah.
this essentially acts as a cold wave going second, especially against Zoo. Because if you're going second against Zoo, they're back row. They're usually back row with a Dryden, right? So I'm forcing the Dryden with this, and they have to deal with it. Or if they don't deal with it, they basically can't go into Zeus, which was massive. This was also something I wanted to have for Dino because they don't really have, if unless they're maining Cosmics, they have to respect it going into game 2 and 3, and no one is citing Mystic Mine. So unless you're playing like I don't know an Eldlich deck Smile, they're not really going to cite in the spell and trap removal. They're usually going to save it for something like a Conquistador or a Meltdown or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Something that would be more effective in the long game. So this actually just caught a lot of people off guard with that.
Yeah.
So.
I can see that. I can see it being a card that really caught people off guard. Um, yeah, and so I think you mentioned that you put it into the Zoo matchup, but from my understanding, most of the Zoo matchups are also playing like they're playing Zoolich or like Zoo Eldlich, so they would theoretically have outs. But I guess if they don't draw the right combination of Eldlich cards, it would still take them a couple turns out the mine. But if
So
I will, yeah, yep.
the one Zoo matchup I did see was actually a Zoo Dogmatica variant, and I did not see any Eldritch cards. So I'm not saying
Oh,
he wasn't,
okay.
but I did not think it would be that, or I didn't think I saw any. So I didn't.
Ah, that's why
So
you put in the Mystic Mines. Okay.
yes.
Yeah, because I think about like if I was playing like a Zoo Eldlich deck and someone Mystic Mine me, I would actually let it resolve because,
Oh yeah.
because if you just really think about it, right, like if you summon a monster, then my Dryden is live to like like play, but then, even if you don't summon a monster, I wait for you to pass turn, then I activate, I activate my Sanguine, and then all of a sudden I have like an out to your mine, and I can out it whenever I decide to, instead of when you decide to actually. So it flips the script almost. Instead of like turning your cards against you. So I definitely think it is a very interesting card, but I think people have to like play correctly into the Mystic Mine for sure. But it is a card that like if you don't respect it, you will get punished pretty badly. I mean, usually
Yeah.
resulting in like a game loss completely, right? Because if you can't out it, you're gonna get decked out. So
Yeah. I think though I'm definitely gonna keep a number of these in the side going into the future because
hmm
Bear Keyboard Blocker lets you resolve it multiple times as well.
okay,
And I wanted to have so like I said, this also acts as a pseudo cold wave when you're just going to Alistair. So if your opponent has like I don't know, the Ecclesia plus Makaba, right? This
yep,
basically turns off both of them. The only problem is that back row decks going into the future are really big. So
yeah,
like Eldlich, like if like I play Eldritch, right? So whenever I see a Mystic Line matchup, I basically think, oh, it's free,
yeah,
because like Conquistador basically just outs it unless they're 500 IQ and prohibitioning the Conquistador. It basically outs it. So you just set up a board and then
yeah,
like you said, you basically just blow up the mine whenever you want, and then you
Yep.
just have game anyway.
Yeah.
So
I think if I was a mine player, I would actually just call Golden Lord, because if they can't get access to Golden Lord, use Golden Lord's effect, then Conquistador is effectively dead. Therefore, you make 3 cards dead instead of 1. But yeah, 100%. Like I definitely do think that. I think you can keep it in for like the combo decks and whatnot. It acts as like another, like, not a Dark Ruler, but like a card that needed to be negated. So I definitely I can definitely understand like mine being able to like just like win you games where people don't expect it for sure. So.
plus, there's a lot of times you can just out it yourself with like
Exactly.
the Lord.
Exactly. Yep. You out it with Lord. You out it with like another. You have your own meltdown. You play terraforming. So there's a bunch of ways you out it yourself. You can conquistador your own mind too. So, 100%, 100%.
Totally. I actually
But
played around
yep.
played around evenly a lot this weekend because the 2 times I did get evenly, I had the Conquistador to blow up my own Lord.
Yes.
Because I
Yep.
didn't want to get rid of my own Mechaba plus Lord. So
Yeah. No. That's yeah. That's a very good play. Yeah. Like using. I think a lot of players don't do that. Where at the start of battle phase, if they do jump right into it, you can just shotgun the Sanguine, and then when they go to like in a battle, you can chain Conquistador, pop your own Lord, or sometimes even I've seen people pop their own Conquistador, depending on like their game state. But yeah, 100%. Well. But yeah, we're at the end of the deck profile. So, is there any last words you would like to say? Thank you again for doing this.
yeah, absolutely. So one question I was asked a ton by the people in my group that were doing a lot of testing is
Yeah.
that obviously not everybody can pick up souls, and I'm lucky where I've been playing this game long enough that I can just pick up these kind of things,
Mm-hmm.
if people want to move them for a decent
Yes.
price. So if you want to play this deck, something I would actually I would genuinely consider is a Rainbow Neos variant that
Okay.
has 3 copies of Neos Fusion with the Garnets and the Neos. Neos basically acts not only as an out to Dragoon, but if Neos Fusion resolves, Dragoon physically cannot out it. Because the fusion can protect it from being destroyed if you activate the effect of Dragoon to spin monsters back to the deck. And then it's 4,500, so you can swing over Dragoon. And it also just is really, really free. It's not like Red Eyes, like I said, it's not like Red Eyes Fusion where you can you have to do as like you're committed to that one play. And if that play gets stopped by like an Ash, you're basically SOL, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that it's also a Verte target. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can get into it. And it's what I got my first invite with, so I would genuinely recommend people picking up Neos if you don't, because not only that, but the traps also treat it as spells and monsters, so you can spin them as well.
Yep.
The only problem is that Neos is not like Dragoon, where you can do it turn 1. In theory, you could do it turn 1 if your opponent like hand traps you, and then you can like Neos try to mill card, spin back their hand trap, and then maybe hit a trap. But it's something that I would genuinely consider if you're worrying about a budget option.
Yeah. I mean, but then you're also playing the Anaconda package. Would you also keep Dragoon and in the Neos engine in? Because if you think about
definitely not. You would basically just replace it, and then you would take out. Like, if you wanted to just take out, like, if we're just looking at this deck, I would cut black and Call by the Grave.
Yeah.
For 2 Neos Fusions.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, they would also have to like cut the 3 souls to fit the engine in too. But
obviously. But
100%. Yeah. I think the value of souls is not the fact that it like lets you like draw cards. It's not. It's like the fact that it's also an extra free body, which allows you to make Anaconda, right? So like there's actually hands where like if you draw Alistair and souls, like that's like a it's a Anaconda, it's Dragoon and a Mechaba, which is like very powerful, right? And even though it's 2 discards, you have Eldlich cards that are being discarded, so it's generally like very favorable, and that inherently plays through evenly matched too, which protects your Eldlich back row, just because you would have like negates, and of course like spending resources to out the Dragoon is one thing, but then you also have to out the Mechaba, and then a guaranteed follow with the Alistair in the hand from the following turn. So I can definitely see it being very problematic, and that's why Souls is so powerful. And of course, like the draw 2 is just ridiculous, right? So I 100%. It's so hard to find budget alternatives for that type of card, just because it like does something that like it can't really be replicated. But I would say like I would say there's actually a card that I was thinking about playing if I was playing Invoked Eldlich, which is actually Popper Up. And it sounds like kind of sucks because you're losing quite a bit of life, but the idea is that you pitch 3 cards, you draw 3 cards, and you're pitching Eldlich cards most of the time, and it guarantees you seeing Alistair like very very high chance of seeing Alistair almost, because you're playing 7 copies with the draw 3 card in your deck. And so that's something that people might consider as well. And of course, if you pitch Lord and you open up Meltdown Lord, that's also like Anaconda with like the Dragoon and Mechaba package. So that's something to think about. Yeah, but it's called Popper Up. Yeah, for anyone in the chat and watching this video, listening, it's a Performer Pal card. But anyways,
it's what we used to run in Spiral back when we couldn't afford Magician Souls.
exactly. I think my boy Hani was actually playing both because he was a savage. But
Yeah, dude.
anyways, yo, thank you so much again, Bryce, for doing this deck profile. I appreciate to see what you played, your understanding, and your card choices. But yeah, anyways, thank you everybody for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Comment down below your favorite part about this interview and your thoughts on the deck itself. But all right, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.